and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vogt.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back, yes! Episode 231, a show in which we will tell you like it is, how it is, and we will accurately tell you what it is like, if you know what I mean. We will talk more about that in a second, because I am your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., 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 and all the way in Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Vogt, Shield. What's going on there, Shield?
You know, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say right now that my 2025 bracket for the NCAA men's basketball tournament is probably already busted. We haven't even tipped off a game yet. So I'm just going to go out and say,
True.
I will not be collecting the $1 billion prize from Warren Buffett here anytime soon. But hey, we had a good run. We're looking forward to 2026. But hey, March Madness kicks off and gets rolling here tomorrow. And there's not going to be a lot of productive days here the rest of the week, especially for those in school, because we all remember the days back in middle school, high school, this time of year, the teacher that was probably some sort of athletic coach would just throw on the games and you would just, do whatever at that point, as long as you weren't being disruptive. Those teachers were the real MVPs back in the day.
Yeah, I think we should just do class. Yeah. Skull Zone is tuning in again with us. We appreciate it. He's got some Minnesota stuff that we're going to be talking about for sure. Mm-hmm. Grabbing some beers and getting ready for the show. Let's go. Yeah. And Rondale Moore signed Speed Demon. Let's go, man. I'm stoked. Dude. Let's go. This dude is going to be good. I really believe so. And this was just minutes before we started the show here. And, hey, welcome to Minnesota, Rondale Moore. I know had the injury last year, didn't really play at all for the Falcons. Let's see what he can do with our Minnesota Vikings. So that is a big pickup. And we'll talk more about that. And then Skull Zone says Shield is the man. So, hey, Shield.
My dog.
My man. Let's go.
My man.
So, I guess, he broke the news because Voldy, since we got breaking news last week with Harrison Smith, I decided, we should probably have a soundbite in honor of that. So, this is what we got. If we do get breaking news during the show, I will hit this. So, get ready. Boom! There you go. The breaking news, it's gonna let you know if we got something for you. Even the zoners could get it quicker than us. I mean, since we are live and whatnot. But, yeah. So if you have any breaking news, throw it in the chats, the whole deal. So tonight we got a lot to talk about. We are talking about the big news this morning. Our guy, Tommy P. And claps out to Tommy P.
Shout out to Tommy P. Keeping it true to his Minnesota roots, baby.
Exactly. And the thing is he accurately reported, like he usually, always how he does it. And we love Tommy P here and whatnot. And he did say for certain that the Vikings are not going to pursue one Aaron Rodgers. Yes, it is finally over. It's finally over. We can stop talking about this. But there are a number of insiders that are still talking about how this might be a possibility. and whatnot. We'll get to them in a second. And we did throw the invite out to a couple of them in case they wanted to join us on the show, and they can explain themselves. We're not going to treat them. We're not going to treat them bad. We're not going to be, we're just going to have a conversation. We're just going to have a conversation.
Let's chat.
Let's just chat, chit chat. You know what I mean? So, So we'll get to that. We'll give our thoughts on that specifically, and then we'll address the elephant in the room as well. After that, we will talk Wolves. The Wolves are making a playoff push. They lost the other night against the Pacers, but again, not totally their fault because, it's just kind of, the Pacers played well. They made every shot. They took them to OT and everything. They just had a better night. So so we'll talk about that. The playoff push is on for our Minnesota Timberwolves. And then, Voldy, we have updated our top 10 infamous lists for this week. There's a lot that has to be said to some specific reporters. In my list, Voldy has updated his as well. We'll give more context to that during that time. The ARAs are stacked this week, guys. The Bengals are getting both Teehiggins and Jamarrchase back in Cincinnati. What does that mean for Trey Hendrickson? Don't know. We will see about that. Talk more about it. And North Carolina sneaks into the NCAA tournament. They are officially in as of yesterday after destroying San Diego State. I couldn't believe just how badly they beat them. It was crazy. But there's a lot to talk about with that. Apparently, Putin and Donald Trump have been talking about NHL KHL game will happen will be happening at some point. Don't know when.
Maybe.
Voldy's got some. We got some questions in regards to that. Then Deionsanders wants an opponent for their spring game. Yeah, I could see that. We'll talk more about that as well. And to round things off, Draymond, he's back in the news again. He states his case for Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, we'll talk more about that.
Go away, Draymond. Go away.
Yeah, go away. And then, of course, shield shoutouts. We have a plethora of shield shoutouts tonight. As well. So, Voldy, lots to talk about. And Skullzone says, I can feel the Minnesota passive aggression. Trust me, when we get to this show, all bets are off. We're going to address you right away. We're going to address you. That's the thing. And, if you don't like it, you don't like what we have to say, but we have the facts laid out, then too bad. That's just how it is. So, with that being said, Voldy, let's get it going with some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
Voldy, it's finally over. Like we said at the beginning, Tommy P with the report saying that the Vikings are not going to be pursuing one Aaron Rodgers. Yes, it is finally over. We can breathe a sigh of relief. That man is not going to be here in Minnesota. We're very happy about that. I had to change some things because, obviously I was, putting together talking points for the show coming up, and obviously didn't find out until this morning that Aaron Rodgers would not be pursued by the Vikings. But not only that, Voldy, the Vikings were getting phone calls about one J.J. McCarthy, our guy, who was going to be QB1, and they rejected him. They said, nope, he's our guy. We want to go forward with him. So before we kind of get into it with that, we're going to kind of keep it more towards our thoughts officially with that. We'll get to those insiders with top 10 and famous list when I get to mine and whatnot. So, if you want to wait for that, you want to, check it out later too, you're more than welcome. Give your thoughts too. You can give your thoughts. We'll fire back right at you with that whole thing in regards to some of these insiders. So, Voldy, my question to you is, what is your thoughts on the Vikings saying no to Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts? What do you got?
I think right now the Vikings are in a situation. Obviously, they have spent quite a bit coming into obviously this offseason. In fact, that they signed Rondale Moore before even the show started tonight, too, in addressing some areas of need and concern: offensive line, defensive line. Picking up a few guys and on the back end too in the defensive backfield. With also adding another piece on offense too. I wonder Rondale Moore would be a nice piece when it comes to maybe wide receiver number 3, maybe, or even something that we could use in the return game as well, because that's certainly been a bit of a quiet number for the Vikings the last couple of seasons. On top of that, that's been good to see. But obviously, another thing that we need to address: what's the backup quarterback situation looking like? Especially when you have a now soon-to-be second-year quarterback, even though he missed all of 2024, going to be his first year actually getting meaningful snaps in the NFL, besides, of course, a handful of preseason games last year before he got hurt. What's that backup quarterback situation going to be like? Of course, now we're in the time where it could be beneficial to bring in a veteran. Of course, you wanted someone along the same caliber of an Aaron Rodgers, maybe just without all the hype and the circus that goes along with Aaron Rodgers. I'm happy that the Vikings took their stance and said, you know what, we appreciate it, but no thanks at this point, because of the amount of money that Rodgers was looking for on a basic 1-year, maybe 2-year guarantee on a new contract, and he's looking for that one, maybe, at least $45 million a year situation. So it could be 1 year 45, 2 years 90 million for his short tenure at whatever team he decides. Or he's basically at a crossroads now at this point, where it very well could be that if the Vikings aren't going to sign him, and if Pittsburgh doesn't go after him, it could very well be that the career and the football life of Aaron Rodgers is over at this point, which honestly would not be a big surprise for me, given off of everything that he's got going on outside. And just, I feel like we're at a time now where it's better to leave, quit while you're ahead in this situation for Rodgers. But I'm happy the fact that the Vikings didn't fall for the same trap that they did back in 2008, 2009 with bringing in Brett Favre. We got that one really good year, and the second year had some moments, but not the same as we did in that 2009 season on top of it. But we still need to address what's the backup quarterback situation going to be looking like. I'm just glad Aaron Rodgers is not going to be wearing purple, because I don't think I could live that down for the rest of my life, knowing that he was a Viking.
I said it last week, and, when Mikey was on, we're emphatically saying this isn't a good idea. The only way that this can work is if he's willing to play ball and abide by certain rules, as opposed to not being on McAfee,
Right.
talking nonsense, doing other stuff, being, obviously Aaron Rodgers, ayahuasca and all. But my reaction to this is like, finally we can move on with our lives instead of messing around with this and, having all this anxiety about, oh God, I don't want him on this team. Why this doesn't
Right.
make sense. And I said it last week that if that man is going to be successful, I will take everything back what I said. If he can lead us to the Super Bowl and win, I take back everything I said. But it was such a low possibility of that happening and whatnot. Now, there's no ifs, ands, or buts that the Vikings were a little interested. It doesn't mean that they're completely like, we're all in, we're pushing all our chips, this is how it's going to go. It was more like, let's just have a conversation about it. Let's assess the situation before we jump to any conclusions.
Right.
And did they probably contact Rodgers and his people? Sure. Doesn't hurt to. But I think the more that they thought about it and the more that this went on, it seems to me that the Vikings did their research, and I think they came to the conclusion that this wasn't going to be a possibility. And the fact that people are like, oh, they don't believe in JJ. There's something wrong with his injury, like everything like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with JJ. I think Pelissero put it out pretty plain and clear that he's healthy. He's up. People are worried about his weight and stuff. It's like he's up over 200. He's like 207 or something like that. I mean, what's the issue? There's no issue. And this has been set up. This whole thing has been set up for J.J. McCarthy to be successful with the Minnesota Vikings. And, this doesn't change the fact or change the trajectory of where they want to go. And it's like, people think that the Vikings are, I mean, this is the year. They got to win the Super Bowl. They got to do it. No one said that. No one has ever said that. And we don't owe Aaron Rodgers a damn thing. We don't owe him anything. He gets to play Green Bay again, gets to shove it right back in their face. Who cares? I don't give a crap. I'd rather have McCarthy come in who has the potential and can flourish in this offense. Does he have to throw the ball a bunch? No. That's why they got Jordan Mason, another sneaky pickup by our Minnesota Vikings. So there's a lot to like about where this is going, and I'm glad we can kind of move on from it. Some people don't want to do that, and those people that have been called out, and one of them did end up blocking me on the Twitter sphere. I didn't say anything that was bad. I just said you got to own up to your mistakes. And the thing is if you don't own up to your mistakes, you just block people. So Mike Silver, I'm talking to you.
Brutal, Mike.
I'm just telling you, you were wrong. Just admit you're wrong. You can admit that. 50-50. It's a 50-50 decision that, Rodgers is going to be coming to, Minnesota.
Everything is 50-50 in life. It's 50-50 whether I throw myself out a window right now.
Exactly.
I'm hoping for the 50 that keeps me in this chair and not out the window. But, hey, who knows what happens in the next 5 minutes? It's 50-50 whether it snows tomorrow.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to snow today. Didn't snow.
Exactly. Exactly. 50-50. Inside reporters and weathermen, the people that can make stuff up and still have a job at the end of the the
this is true.
Love
this
it.
is so
Sorry,
true.
Meteorologists
And stuff.
And insiders.
And Voldy, I hate to do this since this person is a Mizzou product, but Chase Daniel, I mean, like going back on his...
Guy's a bit of an idiot.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to admit guy's an idiot, but whatever.
Well, and then he goes on to, like when the news broke, he's like, I just want to let people know I have a big fan of JJ and I think he's going to be great and, this and that. But Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to win now. I don't agree with their decision. It's like, have you not seen this man completely ruin an NFL season by what he has done this past year with the Jets? It was absolutely awful. They did everything that he wanted them to do. He got Devontae. He failed. He epically failed. He looked like an old man. He looked worse in a Jets uniform than Favre. He looked worse than Favre.
Hey.
And that's saying a lot. And Favre comes here and kills it. I mean, this isn't anything new to me about this whole situation. They didn't want him. They looked into it. They said, okay, what would this look like? They didn't want him. I'm going to get to Diana Rossini. I'm waiting for that. We have not gotten a message yet if she would hop on.
Come on,
probably
Diana.
Won't. But you know what, Diana, we'd love to have you on again. We're not gonna be mean. We're just we're gonna disagree. But hey, we
want to check some facts. We need to do some fact checking.
Fact checking, and I got it ready to roll for top 10 famous list.
Yep.
Yep, I got it ready for that. Let's get to the zoners. Skull Zone, our guy, J.J. McCarthy is a god in the state of Michigan. Well, true, bring you a national title and everything. That'll make you a god right there.
Yep.
When the Vikings drafted Dallas Turner, the crowd booed so loud. When J.J. McCarthy was drafted, you could hear a pin drop. I was dead center in that crowd with my Viking gear on, repping the skull loud and proud. That's right. Let's go. Yeah, and again, like I hate to kind of look at this because a lot of people are like, oh, big on J.J. McCarthy. If you thought Aaron Rodgers was going to come in here and take us to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, you're kidding yourself. I mean, right. he'd get rocked. That's the thing. You can have the best O-line, you're still going to get hit. He probably is going to tear an ACL or something. Shield is on fire tonight, so props out to Shield from Skull Zone. And Skull Zone, I wanted Rodgers as a Viking, thought he would be good with us and give McCarthy one more year to recover from his knee, just in case he's not ready. Rodgers does have 4 MVPs and a Super Bowl and owns the Bears. I mean, I don't disagree with that just because he does have that. No. But if you see what happened this past year, I just don't think you can defend that. And I know the Jets are terrible. I get that. But can you really block out the whole McAfee stuff? And if something goes wrong, he's going to turn it into a circus. That's what's going to happen. So, Jason asks, our guy Jason Schmitz, are you in win now mode? Because all signs to point that you are. And if you are, get Rodgers. Okay. Let's take a second here because I know what he's doing, and because I know my cousin well enough to do this.
Trying to bait you.
He's trying to bait me into saying like, oh, you're absurd and all this. I know what you're trying to do, and guess what? I'm not falling for the bait. I know. Jesus. Not trying to get this whole deal. Get into it with this whole Rodgers thing. You guys are in win now mode? Yeah. Have you seen the contracts that we've given out? They're 3-year deals for most of these guys. Yeah. I mean, Fry's is a 5-year deal, one of the massive deals. Kelly's a 2-year deal. Allen's a 3-year, and I think Hargrave's 2-year. But again, this isn't just, if this was win now, you'd be 1-year contract with this guy. No, that's not what it's going on here. What's going on here is building a team around, I would say, in this sense, a rookie QB, because that's what it is at this point. And who's to say that they're not going to go out and get a veteran trade and or, sign in free agency? I think they might trade, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. I think they're going to trade for somebody. I don't know who, but it doesn't make sense. And I don't think O'Connell wants to deal with it. I don't think any of us in the any of the people in the organization want to deal with Aaron Rodgers. We don't want him here. It has been very apparent. And if he's been following X, formerly known as Twitter, he would know no one wants him here in Minnesota. We don't want him at all. And it's like, some fans, granted, would say, if he takes Super Bowl, it'll change my mind. It'll change my mind. He's got to win it. I don't care. He's got to win it. It doesn't matter. So, bring back Kirk. Hey, I'm fine with bringing back Kirk, as long as the Falcons pay for it. As long as the Falcons pay for it, he can be back.
That's going to work. The Falcons take the majority of that contract.
Yeah, if they take the majority, I say bring him back.
Bring him back. Screw it.
Why not?
Out of the bench, Kirk.
Russell Wilson route. Rookie QB contract with a nuclear defense. Legion of Skull. I like that. Legion of Skull? I do like that. I give you credit for that, man. Skull Zone. Killing it. Hey, I'm cool with bringing back Kirk as a backup, Jason. I don't know about you. As long as Atlanta's paying for it, good with me. So, yeah, and again, I think we're all in agreement. We're going to get to our, I would say, Aaron Rodgers defenders, I would say, for these guys. I think that's the best way to describe these guys, these insiders. So more on that in Infamous List tonight. But, Voldy, let's move on to our next hot take of the night. The Timberwolves. Sure. They're making the playoff push, man. They've got a pretty easy schedule these next few weeks and going into April as well. We're getting close to the end of the season. The Wolves were on a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-game winning streak. They lost to Indiana on Monday in OT. I watched some of that game. Obi Toppin was just killing it, man. He was hitting shots, like crazy shots here and there, and Wolves can only do so much, but the Wolves were outplayed. Anthony Edwards had 38 points in that game as well, and the Wolves are playing right now against the Pelicans. Don't lose this game. Please don't lose this game. They are in the first quarter, 20-12. The Wolves are up, so let's keep that going for our Wolves. So, Voldy, looking at these next few, you got New Orleans twice, so today and Friday, and then you got the Pacers again at Indiana, which I think they can come back. I think they're going to come back and play a lot better. Phoenix, who's kind of teetering. Detroit is actually a better team this year. They're actually in the playoff race in the East. Denver, Brooklyn, that should be a win. Sixers are terrible. That should be a win. Milwaukee's okay. Memphis is pretty good. I mean, other than that, I think they could close out the season on a high note. What are your thoughts here, these last few for the Wolves? I mean, Voldy, do we have faith that they can get like the 6th seed, jump over the Warriors? I mean, what do you think? Do you think they can get out of the play-in? What do you got?
I think they could definitely do their best to work their way out of the play-in. I think we got 12 games left, including tonight. You need at least 8 out of the next 12 for sure. Maybe even more. If they get 9 to 10, I think for sure they're getting themselves out of the play-in. But 8 is at least the minimum that they need to do here in this. I mean, I see 8 wins on this block here for sure. I mean, you could definitely take both out of New Orleans. You could definitely squeak one out against Indiana, Denver as well. That hasn't really looked the same this season. Memphis, you could definitely sneak out a win or two. Brooklyn, I want to say you want to take 2. You could definitely beat Philly for sure. So that's 7-8 wins right there. But it's definitely going to come down to, you definitely want to win against Detroit. You definitely want to take down Utah for sure, especially how tight things have been there as of late. I mean, this is definitely Phoenix as well. Definitely no slouches themselves, but you need at least 8 wins. I definitely see this happening, especially the way that they played in recent weeks up until that loss on Monday, where they did have that 8-game win streak. A good amount of scoring as well, in the second half of that win streak with Anthony Edwards. But, to start off that win streak, you got Edwards, Reed, McDaniels, DiVincenzo as well, really grinding things out there in the scoring category. But everything else really been a team effort, especially in that recent win streak. But they could definitely play themselves into a better position and get out of the play-in for sure.
So my question is, can they get past the teams that they can get past? Like if they lose to Denver, okay, but Denver doesn't have a bench. I mean, the egg topic for Denver is they just don't have a bench after Jokic and Michael Porter and Jamal Murray and guys like that. They don't really have anybody else. Aaron Gordon's hurt, so you got that going for them. But these next few, I think, are just really important for them to just, get the job done against New Orleans twice. I mean, you get those. You get revenge against Indiana next Monday. Phoenix, you've had their number for a while, too. I mean, right. Detroit is they're sneaky. I think that'll be sneaky. Denver, we just talked about. Brooklyn Nets. I mean, that's a game you should win. I mean, they're on the road for like almost a full week because it's Denver, Brooklyn Nets, the Sixers, and then at Milwaukee. Oh, wait, no. And then at Memphis. So this is crazy in itself. But long road trip coming up. So, you got to make most of what you got with these home games and, kind of go from there. Skull Zone says, I think Anthony Edwards is so close to being on the level of Kobe and MJ. That guy is amazing, and he's a Laker fan. So, I don't know. Objects in your mirror may be closer than they appear there, Skull Zone, if you are a Lakers fan. But it sounds like LeBron is making his way back, too. I mean, the Lakers, they're going to be tough. And the Warriors, I hate to say it because Jimmy Buckets is on that team, but they'll probably fail anyways because Jimmy Buckets. But we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, yeah, I think the Wolves. I think the Wolves can close it out. Obviously close it out with a winning record at least of these last few games, and kind of go from there. So I'd like to see them get out of the play-in just so they don't have to deal with all these other teams and whatnot. Just get the job done. Get the seventh or get the sixth, fifth. I don't know. Maybe they could play for fourth. We'll see. So I'll keep an eye out. I'll keep an eye out for updates and stuff throughout the show here. Keep you guys updated. He goes, yeah, man, I'm excited about tonight's game. Lakers versus the Nuggets. Yeah. wait, hold on. Denver versus the McNuggets. So it looks like McDonald's is happening over there against the McNuggets. And again, there's some pretty good matchups between both the Nuggets and the Lakers each year as well. So checking that out as we go along. But anyway, let's make that playoff push. Let's get it done with the Wolves. Top 10 infamous lists. Well, we have our lists and everything like that. I think I'm going to start off because we need to address the elephant in the room with these insiders, these Aaron Rodgers apologists, if you will. So let's get it going with our top 10 infamous lists.
Here's the list no one wants to be on. Infamous Top 10.
Dad joke of the day with a side of cheese. I love it. You crack me up, I will say. Let's talk infamous list. So I'm going to start with my list. We got to do the drum roll. Obviously, got to do the drum roll before we get reveal our lists. And you guys let us know what you think too of your list. And if you guys want to put your own together, let us know. We'd love to see it. So
absolutely.
Without further ado, here is our top 10 infamous list. Yes,
there it is.
There we go.
Oh, that was close.
That's what we got. We got our list as well. I'll start with mine. Let's get this over with, Voldy, and this is something that needs to be addressed because I think these lists are very important to us, and we enjoy doing these lists. So at number 10, as you guys can see, I have the Rodgers enablers. And that is in reference to Diana Rossini, unfortunately, and I hate to do it because I do have a lot of respect for her and everything like that. Michael Silver and Chase Daniel. These three have been very biased when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and where he wanted to go, obviously, to our Minnesota Vikings. So the whole ordeal, it seems like a lot of these reports coming from them was like, oh, the Vikings want him for sure. They're trying to work out a deal, and they're trying to, they're trying to, get him in here. They're having these, interesting conversations, I think Mike Silver said in one of his tweets. Diana Rossini saying, oh, well, my inkling is that he's going to go to the Minnesota Vikings. I think that's where it's at right now, and that's what they want to do. But then what's interesting to me is that there are people within the ESPNs, the NFL networks, the insiders around that, the Kevin Seiferts, the Ben Gesslings, the local media around here as well, Darren Wolfson, Doogie, that are saying, okay, there's some interest, but this is a very slim chance. Whereas Diana Rossini is putting out to the national media, Michael Silver, and even Chase Daniel, because they have their show together, Scoop City or whatever, I don't know, whatever the hell it's called, saying that, Rodgers' preferred destination is Minnesota. He wants to go to Minnesota. He likes what the Vikings have done and whatnot. It's hard not to like what's going on. Now, the fact that they put out that not only are the Vikings like super interested and that's for sure where he wants to go, and this is a slam dunk that he's going to go to Minnesota and everything. They kept changing the narrative, especially when Schefter says, I don't see this. This is a small chance of happening. They've talked about it. They've discussed it, but they're not sold on bringing him in. Same thing with Rappaport. He said the same thing. Jeremy Fowler, who is very well in tune with what's going on in the NFL, said the same thing. You see, there are all of these other entities, the guys, people that we do trust, like the Shefties, like the Rappaports and whatnot. Kevin Seifert was the one saying, like, it's not a 0% chance that Aaron Rodgers doesn't come to Minnesota. And then they take that as, it's going to happen. Oh, my God, it's going to happen. This is going to happen. We just know, So my question is why do they seem so, like, hell-bent on thinking that this is going to happen when this has been proven that it's not? So I did a little bit of research. And the thing that I came up with is there was a Twitter account. Again, Vikings fan, so a little biased. But he said in this tweet, and I think this is very interesting in itself. Diana is the same one that, and this is what the tweet says. Reminder, Diana is the same one that kept pushing how the Vikings were going to / should re-sign Sam Darnold and trade away J.J. McCarthy. But Sam Darnold's agent is... I don't know who the person is or anything. I don't know if it's just an agency that whoever represents him. Sam Darnold's agent is CAA, which is some company that represents guys, in free agency, things like that, contracts or whatnot. So who is Aaron Rodgers' agent? Yep, CAA as well. So this is interesting to me. So, what Diana is pushing, whatever agenda the CAA is feeding her, this is basically saying that they are trying to push the narrative that the Vikings are Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Minnesota Viking. Now, why would they do that? I don't know. I don't understand. I mean, is it them talking, or is it Aaron Rodgers' representation talking about this? Very interesting. I think the reason why that they are putting all this out is because this is what Rodgers' camp wants. They want this out in the open. That's the way they like it, and they're saying Minnesota's the place he wants to go, and shove it right back to Green Bay. All blah 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 blah. That's not the case, and that is not quality reporting at all. That is actually bad reporting. And the fact of the matter is that this morning, when Tommy P, our guy Tommy P. Volpe, said that the Vikings turned down trade offers for J.J. McCarthy, and they are not going to pursue Aaron Rodgers. So, like the guy that I am, I had to tell those same people that have been saying Rodgers to Minnesota, Rodgers to Minnesota, Rodgers to Minnesota, and I said, you took the L. I put the GIF out. I said, here's the L. Take it, take it, take it. See, this was never going to be happening. It was never going to be happening. And guess what happens? Mike Silver, I'm talking to you, man to man. You blocked me. Because you know I was right. You knew I was right. And that's why you blocked me off X, formerly known as Twitter. Dude, you were wrong. Just admit you were wrong. That is the tall tale sign to show, listen, I was right about the whole time, listening to guys that do quality reporting, like Ian Rappaport, like Adam Schefter, like Kevin Seifert, like Darren Wolfson, Doogie. This is completely out of left field, and this is how you repay. You go up and you say, oh, I'm going to block you because I was right. Guess what? I was right and you were wrong. Just admit you were wrong. And Diana Rossini, what do you do right after that? Goes, well, there's still a chance that Aaron Rodgers could be a Minnesota Viking. I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, you can't give it up, lady. You can't give it up. You were wrong. Just admit you were wrong. And the thing is that these people will never admit that. And that's okay. If you don't want to admit that you're wrong, then fine. Admit it to yourselves that, okay, I'm just going to go about it's just a stupid guy on a podcast saying that, I was wrong and everything like that. Because you were. The proof is in the pudding. You were wrong about this whole situation. And you won't go on Twitter and you won't even join us on this show to talk about this. Let's talk about it. Are you pushing the agenda that Rodgers camp wants you to push out? Because the Vikings went up to Aaron Rodgers and said, no, absolutely not. They said no, and that's why we caught you in a lie. Like Voldy, here's an example. Let me give you an example. What if our guy Case was climbing up one of your counters or something, trying to get some cookies, and you caught him with his hand in the bag. Say, Case, were you trying to take some cookies? And Case would say, no, I wasn't. No, I don't know what this is or anything like that.
Right.
This is a perfect comparison. We caught you.
Yep.
Don't just admit you're wrong. That's all you got to do. But no, they push the narrative. No, it still might happen because they got to see how J.J. McCarthy does in the offseason and everything like that. That's with every freaking player. This isn't hard to figure out. So we just exposed you, and especially Chase Daniel, we exposed you too. And what do you say? Well, actually, what I was trying to say was that it's better if McCarthy. I love McCarthy, but he's been unproven. He hasn't played an NFL game. Well, no shit, Sherlock. We already know that. That's why we built around this team. Kwesi would just be ripped and torn to shreds if the Vikings decided we're just gonna go with Rodgers. Forget all the pieces that we need. Forget it. We don't need it. All the work that I put in, we're throwing it all away, putting it with Rodgers. Golly, I'm done. I'm sorry, but they're frauds. I'm just gonna say. And Skullzone says she just doesn't want to be wrong.
It's all about clout chasing. Clouts and clicks, baby.
Chasing.
Not facts and journalism. Clouts and clicks.
Tommy P knows what he's talking about because he's been in on this. Just the people that I've already listed. And I have a response to one. Let's see. Let's see how this goes. I have a response to some of these people that were wrong. And here it goes.
They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us.
I told you. You're not like us. You're not like Minnesota Vikings fans. You're not like us. That's why when we call you out on your BS, you go and block us on Twitter. So we are closing the book on that. Welcome to the top 10 infamous list. So I'm going to breeze through my list here, make it a little bit bigger, so you can see my face with this whole thing. The number 9, I have the NBA refs. The reffing is pretty bad in the NBA right now. Like I said, with the Minnesota-Indiana game as well. They missed a bunch of calls with Rudy Gobert. They gave him a flagrant 2 because he was defending his teammates and everything like that. So apparently that's a bad omen. And they decided, no, you know what? This is how it's going to be. You got a flagrant 2 after the guy just before that, elbowed Mike Conley in the face, which they missed, by the way. So they're at number 9. Number 8, Urban Meyer. Hasn't really done much, but again, I think that's going to be more for a Hall of Shame type of thing as well. But at number 7, I got Glentaylor. Glentaylor, I just feel like has, we haven't heard much since arbitration, since A-Rod and Laurie have won that. Not sure when the next deadline is going to be, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes as well. So we're going to keep our eye on it and see where it goes from there. But then we got Sean Payton. Obviously, we already know the deal with Sean Payton, guys. Don't need to explain it. He's at number 6. Number 5, we have Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, he's been in the news recently. He is apparently getting married. So I think hopefully he's turned over that leaf and whatnot, even though he has been absent, to say the least, for the Cleveland Browns in football terms. So he's at number 5. He's moved up a little bit, but hopefully he's a changed man when it comes to that whole ordeal. But number 4, I have MarkCoyle. MarkCoyle decided that it was a good idea to leave the whole selection committee thing and fly back to Minnesota and fire Ben Johnson at 1 a.m.
Brutal.
That's weird. It's just messed up. Like, why would you do that? Like, what's going on here? And I put him at blame as well because he kind of set Ben Johnson up for failure, even though I do have an opinion, too, that I don't think Ben Johnson did himself any favors. I don't think he was ready. I just think, for the big time, this is college basketball. You're a head coach of a Division I basketball team. You have to have a good team. Yeah, they've had some success this past year, but I don't think they're going to surpass that. They lost a lot of guys to NIL stuff. A lot of guys have transferred out, and I think that has to be addressed. And he never could get those guys to come back and whatnot. But MarkCoyle's up there just because you gotta find the right guy to lead this squad. And again, the barn is kind of a trash bin. No offense, but it kind of is. It's a
nice trash bin.
We'll put it like that. I think that's the best way to put it. As the big 1-year-old Tate joins us just his birthday. So happy birthday to Tate as well. Then we have Draymond Green. Draymond Green, Voldy. He just can't help himself. We're going to talk more ARA with him specifically about him thinking he's Defensive Player of the Year, all that nonsense. Apparently, the NBA players are not cut out for as much money when they're done and everything like that, even though he's getting paid millions of dollars. Most absurd statement. You get the whole deal there. So Draymond has moved up a lot in our rankings. And number 2. No surprise, Aaron Rodgers, a.k.a. Aaron Rodgers. He has gone up this list significantly since the offseason. And granted, he has not said anything, and we haven't heard from anybody, but he is talking through his apologists, his people, and that being Michael Silver and Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel. Look, it's over, dude. It's over. Just retire. You don't have anything left, and you proved it in New York. Nobody wants you. The Vikings don't want you. Well, I've already explained this. Go retire. Take your ayahuasca. Take whatever stuff you're smoking. Go to your darkness retreat and retire. We don't want to hear from you anymore. I'm done with you for sure. Number 1, we have those damn pohlads. Now, Voldy, I know we did induct them in the Hall of Shame, and the rule is that they can't be on the list anymore after that. But they still have not sold the team. So they are going to stay there. I have changed the rule on that. They will stay there until the team is officially sold. So right now, Voldy, we have the pohlads at 1, Rodgers 2, Draymond 3, 4, MarkCoyle, 5, Deshaun Watson, 6, Sean Payton, 7, Glentaylor, urbanmeyer at 8, 9, NBA refs, and number 10, the Rodgers enablers, Diana Rossini, Michael Silver, Chase Daniel. We exposed you. That's how it goes. So, Voldy, let's get rolling with your list. I now take a break. Go ahead.
Of course, we roll into it here. And I really started at number 10 with Deshaun Watson. I felt like he was going to make his way off the list. Then I see he drops $2.5 million on an engagement ring. I don't know what his fiance thinks about the man of 1,000 massages, but fairly well enough to say yes in a situation that they could spend the rest of their lives together. So congrats to them, I guess. Hopefully it leads to success on the field as well as off the field, even though probably won't be this season or in Cleveland. Up to the number 9 spot, sports streaming services. That's right. Of course, the wonderful days of the changing name of what used to be Bally Sports North. Now it's FanDuel Sports Network North. And now we got to throw in Twins.tv. That's right. MLB Baseball ending their contract with ESPN and all these other streaming platforms, now going to be covering local teams. It just gets more and more confusing and more expensive. Where can I get them all in one just so I can watch the Twins? Might win a few games this season, hopefully a Central Division title, but it looks like it has to get even further and further complicated in that realm. Up to the number 8 spot we sit at with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, the Rays cannot do anything good for themselves, including the plans of trying to build a new stadium, which they've been trying to do basically since the inception of the Rays as they've been playing at Tropicana Field. Unfortunately, with the storm damage that did take place this past offseason, that has forced them to play a majority of their games on the road to start the season, and any home games could actually be taking place at the Yankees spring training facility, believe it or not, for home games. And it looks like they are going to be looking to get Tropicana Field ready for the 2026 season. And it looks like a majority of those home games will stay at Steinbrenner Field in Florida. And the Lightning themselves, I just cannot stand the fact that the Lightning still find ways to keep themselves relevant, even after the glory years that they did have with those back-to-back Stanley Cups, including one in the bubble itself. Guy that's still on the list, even though I don't know why he's still on the list, Urbanmeyer, just rubs me the wrong way with everything that he's done off the field ever since leaving Florida and, of course, at Ohio State, but still just cannot get out of his own way or stay out of trouble. Now at number 6, Draymond Green, and, of course, we'll talk more reasons why about Draymond Green coming up here of just the wild fantasies that he continues to incite in his own mind, a guy that literally is committing assault and murder on the basketball court when hardly even playing to begin with, still continues to find himself with a job, even with the Golden State Warriors and in the NBA. MLB advanced statistics. Yes, we all know my gripe with these advanced numbers and how irrelevant they are and the quantifiable measures that we continue to put out to say whether a player is good or bad. Can he hit the ball? Can he catch the ball? Can he throw the ball? It's as simple as that. If he can't do 2 out of 3 or can't do any of those, he's not good. If he can do all 3, he's a good player on top of it. So I don't understand why we need to make up fake numbers to quantify a guy that is good and possibly make him look better than some of the greats that find themselves in Cooperstown, New York. Up to the number 4 spot. Yes, a big jump for the Florida Panthers. I hate their friggin' guts. I hate Matthew Tkachuk. I hate Sam Bennett. I now hate Sergei Bobrovsky, and now by association, I have to hate Brad Marchand. I hate the fact that he's now wearing a Florida Panthers uniform, even though that he's hurt, got traded away from my Boston Bruins, and the heated rivalry that they had the last few seasons. I hate Florida so goddamn much when it comes to the Panthers, and I hope they don't win a Stanley Cup, and I really hope that they don't do well in the postseason. Sure, last year was nice, really keeping Edmonton and Canada off another chance at winning a Stanley Cup, but I can't take it anymore. I need it to stop, and the fact that they got one of my more beloved players, and now he's wearing enemy colors, I can't take it anymore. Along the same lines here at the number 3 spot with these Rodgers enablers, national sports media just wants to find any possible way that they can to make Minnesota look bad, even when they are playing really good, especially when it's the Vikings the last few years, or anytime any other Minnesota pro sports team starts doing really well. They're going to find and spin a way to say, well, Minnesota's not actually good. The other team's actually bad, and try to find ways to put Minnesota in a bad situation when it comes to the whole Aaron Rodgers situation or any other reasons. Like, why would anybody want to go to Minnesota? It's horrible there. It's cold. They have no people. They talk funny. I mean, it's the land of misfit toys. Screw you guys. Honestly, go take a long walk off a short pier, honestly. Yeah. Go practice falling down for 5 minutes. We'll catch up with you in a little bit. Just stop. Number 2 spot, a guy that used to hold the number 1 spot, but in a short relative manner, now giving up control, or at least he has to, as appointed by arbitration. Glentaylor, the former majority owner of the Timberwolves and Lynx, of course, now still relevant to the fact that his name is still on this list. But that's about all that it comes to Glentaylor and his relevancy in the world of Minnesota pro sports. Still hanging on for dear life somehow, but yet won't be for much longer. And then finally, my gripe with the quote-unquote Big Ten Conference. Expanded out to what? Now 18 teams, I believe it is now, or supposedly going to be in the next couple of years. 18 teams spanning coast to coast, UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon. You throw all those teams in the mix. Hey, let's get some East Coast teams. Rutgers, Maryland. Of course, Penn State's been there for a while. They used to be independent, but now you get all these teams when it comes to the Big Ten Conference. None of it makes sense whatsoever, especially when you get these classic Big Ten matchups of Maryland versus Oregon. You get USC versus Rutgers. You get Nebraska versus Penn State in classic Big Ten competition. Cannot overstate it. The only good thing that's come out of this is that you get really good matchups in volleyball and softball. That's about it. Football, sure, you get the occasional good, really good prime, old school matchup and everything, but everything else, it just is so watered down to this point. It all comes down to money, and I'm sick and tired of that destroying what used to be a great Power 5 football conference. And this just continues to prove that the Big Ten is just a mid-major conference with $1 billion budget on top of it. That's why they stay at the number 1 spot on my top 10 and famous list.
Well, it's a lot to be said with these lists, and obviously, with how I explained it and how everything with the whole Rodgers enablers, the whole thing, and obviously we have our gripes with a lot of people. I feel like in sports, and you know what? It's fun. Deshaun Watson being one of them. Urbanmeyer, I don't think has ever fallen off this list since we started this thing. I don't think it really has. It's been a long time. But Draymond's been on here a long time as well. MarkCoyle, I think, deserves to be on this list, especially after kind of what he did, which is kind of a scummy way to do it, and especially when he didn't give enough to Ben Johnson. First of all, I do want to say I like Ben Johnson. I think he's a very good coach. I just don't think he was head coach ready. That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. But that's just how they roll with things there. So
I have to keep reminding myself that we're talking about the Gophers Ben Johnson. And
not
the Lions Ben Johnson. I got really confused for a second.
Bears head coach.
Yeah, Ben Johnson, the basketball coach, he was a high school coach, for God's sake. Let's remember that too.
Yeah.
Get somebody with some credibility.
I think he did his best too. I mean, trust me, I think he's a great guy. The thing is, I just don't think he was ready. And it's a lot of it isn't his fault, because I think university didn't do him any favors either. So
no, not really.
That's just kind of my opinion on that. But that's for another time. So here's the list one last time for those who are just tuning in. Skull Zone says this. He says Nick Wright has to make that list. I think that's I think at some point that'll have to happen. I think he was hoping that the Vikings go after Justin Herbert, trade J.J. McCarthy. I know that rumor's kind of been starting, but I just don't think that. They've already made their stance, and they made it pretty clear this morning. So I doubt that would be the case. So Anywho, great job with Infamous List. We got a lot to talk about there. We got the Bengals extending Jamarrchase, Teehiggins for the foreseeable future. Big contracts with those guys. And then UNC sneaks into the NCAA tournament. A lot to talk about there. And then Trump and Putin are talking hockey, apparently. NHL, KHL. A big development going on there. Sanders wants an opponent for their spring game. I think that's not a bad idea. We'll talk about that. And then to round things off, Draymond talking crazy again, which isn't any surprise to any of us here. So I say we get it going. What's up? Approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for Absurd or Approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Well, a couple of more seasons in the stripes for the Cincinnati Bengals will look quite prosperous with a couple of recent signings in a free agency, and the two more prominent wide receivers for the Bengals will remain in the jungle itself. Jamarrchase and Teehiggins reported signed new contracts for the foreseeable future, a couple of 4-year deals, which is included for Chase 4 years, $161 million. That includes $112 million guaranteed. Well, Higgins got a 4-year, $150 million guaranteed for the first, and $115 million that is guaranteed for the first 2 seasons. So see what happens in 2 years' time with Teehiggins. But that knocks off a couple of big marks here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, now the recent news, with free agency, it's like, okay, the big 3 guys, that is Chase, Higgins, and Hendrickson. But of course, now seeing the fact that you see Sam Hubbard, he has decided to retire prematurely at the age of 29. You got Chase, you got Higgins. Now Hendrickson is still out there and available, even for the aging pass rusher that still has quite a bit left in the gas tank. But you throw all that into the mix with, of course, Higgins and Chase signing with Joe Burrow to stay for the foreseeable future, at least 2 of the next 4 seasons. Is it absurd or approved with these signings? Will the Bengals win the AFC North coming up in the 2025 season?
I think it's a great question. I still think the Ravens are going to be a big factor in that division. Pittsburgh could, depending on what they do at quarterback. I mean, apparently they're okay with if Rodgers officially doesn't want to go there or whatever, then they're okay with Mason Rudolph again, I guess. But interesting development there, that's for sure. Yep. But the Browns, well, they got a long ways to go. Even that they did sign an extension with Myles Garrett after he's like, I want out, I want to win.
I feel bad for him. I feel bad for Myles Garrett now. He's drinking the Kool-Aid, man.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's going with the money instead of the actual thing he wanted and win a Super Bowl. And it's like, you got to find a quarterback first. Good Lord. But in regards to the Bengals, I can see it, but here's my question. What are they doing defensively? I know that they're trying to re-sign Trey. I think that'll be a big piece to bring him back. But after Trey Hendrickson, who do they have? Pratt is getting old. Logan Wilson's getting old. I mean, their corners are not that good. I mean, they've got a lot of holes on that defense. They got to figure out. I know they got a new D coordinator. Maybe that'll fix some stuff. But you have a championship-like offense, but you have a terrible defense, and it was proven. I mean, that was the downfall of the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, too little, too late. But at the same time, I mean, you got to have a defense to carry you a little bit. I mean, you got to be at least mid tier to be, considered a contender and everything like that. Will they win the AFC North with those two signing those contracts? Apparently, they beat the narrative of the Bengals don't spend money and all that stuff, Well, they just did. And Teehiggins is a hell of a player. Jamarrchase is a hell of a player. And, they're obviously out to, win Super Bowls. But then again, you're giving them that money, but you're not adding pieces on defense. I just don't understand that specifically. But I could be proven wrong. I want to say absurd. I think the Ravens have earned that right to be the team to beat in that division. So I'm gonna say absurd right now. Unless if they get Trey Hendrickson, maybe I change my mind. Bring him back under a new contract. And if he doesn't get a new contract, I did hear this could turn into a Le'Veon Bell. I'm gonna hold out until I get a new deal type of thing. So we'll see. But yeah, I think it's absurd. I'm gonna go with the Ravens. So Voldy, what do you got?
Yeah, it definitely comes down between the Ravens and the Bengals for me. And, you want to say Pittsburgh's going to be in the mix with that defense they have. But on the other side, who's going to be throwing the football to George Pickens and DK Metcalf? There's not a lot of answers on top of it. Are you going to go with Mason Rudolph? I pray to God that they don't, because that'll be an embarrassment. Lord knows that Myles Garrett will be swinging for the fences with his helmet again at Mason Rudolph back in the division once again. I think the Bengals are taking a look and saying, hey, we're going to have to win with our offense, because Lord knows the defense is getting old and might have to lose a step, or they're going to try and rebuild through the draft defensively for the Bengals. Would not surprise me there. I think the Bengals, especially what we saw in the back half of last season for them and trying to, slowly but surely slide their way back into playoff contention and coming all the way down the final week, they had their chance, and unfortunately that early losing skid that they had to open up the season, including a season-opening loss against New England, did not help them and kind of really set the bar for the year that it was. Are they going to win the division? I'm going to still say the Ravens, but I think the Bengals will be back in the playoffs next year, just based off of what they've got, but they've got some work to do defensively. They want to be able to contend in that very tightly contested AFC North.
And again, they could probably restructure those contracts at some point in order to add some defensive help, but obviously not this year. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to be a playoff team. I think that's pretty set in stone. As long as Burrow's healthy and the other two are, they'll be all right. So, all right, next one, Voldy.
Well, we head to the world of college basketball, in the field for the NCAA men's basketball tournament is set, including a late minute induction, or at least addition, I should say, with the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, who had a, not so great season based off of the numbers that were shown, but yet still found a way to be part of the first four and take down the likes of San Diego State to make it into the big dance within itself in the field of 64. Now, some people saying that this was pretty much a slide in because of the fact that the head of the selection committee just so happens to be I believe the gentleman is the athletic director for North Carolina or some sort of bigwig for UNC, but that certainly helped the Tar Heels resume building in that regard. But it comes down to who they what's their schedule, who they beat. Played a lot of tough games. They didn't win a lot of those tough games, but yet still found a way to sneak into the basketball tournament. I really wish that Seymour was tuning in, because he's our UNC guy and would definitely probably have some mixed emotions about the way that we're disrespecting his Heels. But with the resume that UNC had, minus the win that they had last night, is it absurd or approved? Is North Carolina worthy being a part of the NCAA tournament off the season they had?
It's hard to tell, and I will admit I have not watched a whole lot of college basketball this season.
Oh, I haven't watched a minute all year, and I don't plan on it anytime soon.
And the thing is I'll probably watch some March Madness, because I am doing a couple brackets as well, and we encourage you to do so as well if you want, obviously for fun, funsies. But if you take away that win last night, you take away that there was that they had an athletic director or whatever, the controversy as well surrounding that. But this was the play-in for them, right? This is the play-in for them, and they went in against a good San Diego State team. I believe I thought they made a run 2 years ago or something like that.
They did.
I mean,
They did.
they're no slouches. Don't get me wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's mixed feelings about it, and people saying like didn't do enough to and whatnot. But this was the chance to be like, okay, some people don't believe that you should be in it and everything like that. Then why in the world did you keep why did you keep them in it? And that was kind of the prove that you're going to be, that you deserve a spot. And they kind of did. I mean, they wiped them out and whatnot. So I really haven't seen a whole lot, and I'm not at liberty to say. But, I mean, if they were given the chance, and if they start winning in these games, these next few days, then I think people might change their tune a little bit with UNC. I know, I would probably I think it's got my stamp of approval. I mean, these play-in games, which they should stay that way. They used to be first round games. That's not first round. That's team trying to make it on the bracket. Like this is. Yep. I mean, it's just that simple. But it's got my stamp of approval. I think they're worthy. They proved against San Diego State. I mean, if it was against like some or Alabama State or some team that like American, I think's on there or whatever university, like then there's a big problem. But they took on San Diego State. I mean, they're no slouches. So yeah, I think it's got my stamp of approval. But I probably get ripped for it. But whatever. So Voldy, what do you think?
I think this comes down to a couple things. I think the NCAA tournament is incomplete without North Carolina in the bracket. And two, it really helps when you've got your athletic director, Bubba Cunningham, found the gentleman's name, at the top of the list. And he probably had the final say of whether a team that was going to be on the bubble got in or not. So that certainly is quite something to take note of when it comes to North Carolina's selection in the tournament. And again, they had the chance as well. They could have very well gotten ousted out of the first four and not even been in the round of 64 on top of it. But they came through. They made some plays. And the whole time I'm thinking about this while you were talking too, I just kept saying, watch North Carolina do something stupid and make a run all the way to the Final Four, or even win the whole damn thing.
Exactly.
And take home a national championship. That would just be the funniest thing out of all of this, just with the controversy that came with them even getting into the tournament. Hey, let's make a run and try to win a national championship on top of it. They do something stupid like that. Are they worthy of getting in? I mean, there's a lot of things you can take into account: their strength of schedule, their wins that they had against high quality teams, and maybe some of those questionable wins over quality losses on top of it. I think it came down to basically, look, North Carolina's on the bubble, but they're a team that's always in the tournament. They need to be in the tournament, so let's throw them on top of it. And, if they weren't going to be in the tournament, they were definitely going to be in the NIT for sure. And I don't think that'd go over very well in Chapel Hill if they were in the NIT as opposed to the inside of the national tournament. So are they worthy? I'm not one to say, but I'm going to say it's got my stamp of approval. I certainly like watching North Carolina in the tournament. I'm not a Tar Heels fan at all, but I know that my guy Seymour always hyping up his boys from Chapel Hill, and I definitely kept from afar, even though if I had to pick, I'd probably be more of a Duke guy than a Carolina guy on top of it. But I don't have a horse in the race, but I'll definitely be checking out some games here and there, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'm indifferent. Like, I know people hate, like, oh, you should hate the Dukies. Oh, you should hate the Tar Heels. Like, I don't care. There's some great players that have came from both, teams. I mean, Kyrie, you had Jason Tatum from Duke. You got Tyler Hansborough from UNC. You got, there's just plethora of guys on both sides, and it's just entertaining to watch. Like we said, we don't have a horse in the race. Doesn't matter to us. So, but one other thing with that, Texas, they're 19-40 or not? No, 40. 19-14. Like,
yep.
And they were in the play. They're playing right now, I assume. I think I haven't looked at the score, but
it comes. It's just all about Name recognition. That's really all it is at this point. You could have been undefeated. Yeah, you could have been undefeated playing Conference USA or the Summit League.
Yeah,
and you probably would get an 11 seed or a 13 seed and get ousted out of the first round. It's like, put some respect on these goddamn teams' names.
And to be honest, Xavier's been in this. I've always liked Xavier when they've been in the tournament. I really have. I've enjoyed them in the tourney. Hopefully they win tonight. I did pick them, by the way, but no one cares about that. But we'll go from there. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, we head to the world of international hockey. No, we're not exactly talking NHL, but we're bringing politics in the mix as we are not a political show by any means. But in a recent call that took place as of yesterday, President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin of Russia took to the idea of organizing hockey games between U.S. and Russia that could take place in the near future. Matches within the U.S. and Russia between Russian and American players in the NHL, as well as the KHL, which is the Russian Premier Professional League overseas as well, which is basically their version of the NHL with some very great players that come out of the KHL. Now, this hasn't been something that hasn't been completely foreign to the NHL as well as American hockey teams. Of course, in the times that American teams, or I should say NHL teams, have gone overseas to open up the season, that they have played against some KHL teams on neutral ice, but things have really soured as of late, of course, with the invasion of Ukraine that took place back in 2022, which led to the ousting of Russia in international competition put on by the International Ice Hockey Federation, whether it be at World Juniors or even in Olympic competition. Russia has been held out. Now, with the resurgence of international play through the Four Nations face-off that took place in recent months, and of course the Olympics set to return here for professional players, and the World Cup in 2028, that really has put a little bit of a lead of fire under, of course, Russia, that hasn't been participating in international hockey, even though some of the best players in the NHL and in the world hail from the mother homeland of Russia. Now, with, of course, now politicians getting into the mix, and, of course, the mouthpieces that are Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, we take a look at the possibility of this becoming true, of course, with the Olympics set for next season, World Cup in 2 years' time after 2026. Is it absurd or approved? Will there be an NHL KHL game that will be happening within the next 2 seasons?
Man, it's a tough call. And again, like you said, we are not a political show, and I don't really, I don't need to explain or anything like that about, I believe, certain things and everything like that, but I'm not going to, tell them on this show. But let's just focus on what's going on with this. And it depends on having these hockey games between the KHL and NHL. I think, one, it's a smart idea because there's a lot of Russian hockey players, Kirill Kaprizov, obviously, that are, from Russia that come over to play in the NHL and vice versa, right? And I just think it's having that competition between the two countries. And again, back in the day, obviously the Soviet Union was prominent at that time and whatnot. But with the invasion of Ukraine, in 2022, I just think, cutting off everything with that was I believe warranted. And again, that's what I believe. But I think it's smart to kind of get away from that, just so you don't put players in danger and things like that. But as for which begs the question, like, is this going to happen in the next 2 years? I think it's possible. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't see it happening because, again, if you want to get political on the bit, and I'm not going to specifically, but I just don't trust Putin, really, to be honest with you. It's hard to trust a guy that's trying to take over a country that doesn't need to be taken over and everything like that. And the whole war's going on, and, people are dying in Ukraine, and this is without getting too political on it. I don't see it happening because I just think it's hard to trust a guy that's trying to do certain things like that and whatnot. So I'll say I'm going to go with absurd, but is it possible? I think it's possible. If Trump sweet talks him and they're able to come to an agreement, then I hope we know what we're doing from that perspective. So we shall see. So yeah, I'm going to say absurd, but it wouldn't surprise me if they got it done. So Voldy, what do you think?
I mean, there's a lot of things you can take away from this. I feel from the side of Putin and Trump, I mean, the fact that they've put this out, I feel like it's going to be something that's definitely going to happen. It's all a timing matter of when. There's already enough Russian players on U.S. soil right now that they could definitely form their own team. Of course, we talk about Kirill when healthy. Ovechkin, he's still got some gas in the tank. Vasilevsky, goaltender. Bobrovsky, goaltender. You've got Kuznetsov, who is a one dynamite player too. You've got so many guys in the league itself that could definitely form their own team. And these are the guys that are even in the KHL or have great numbers to go along with it. There's a lot of guys over in the KHL right now that are continuing to light it up and still play very comparable hockey to the NHL style, especially when one guy that's leading the way coaching-wise is a former NHL legend in Sergei Fedorov, who's a coach in the KHL right now and has been in talks in recent years to quite possibly come over and coach in the NHL. Now, there's a lot of things coming into that, like I talked about with the recent rulings of the International Ice Hockey Federation saying that they have extended the ban against Russia and Belarus as well from participating in international ice hockey tournaments put on by the IHA, by the IIHF. And they extended that ban recently all the way up until 2025-26, which puts them out of World Juniors competition, especially, which is kind of the premier IIHF event. But the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, has yet to make a final decision of participation for Russia and Belarus in the upcoming games, which is 2026 in Milan for the Winter Games, but under what conditions? Of course, we did see in recent Olympics, the Olympic athletes from Russia, that congregation, some performing, some participating through the refugees one as well. There's a lot of loopholes through that. I feel like that if Putin and Trump want to put on something like this, they're going to find a way to do it even without the IIHF, kind of being the governing body. Now it's going to come down to, okay, they say, hey, we're doing this. We need guys. Which guys from America, which guys of Russia are going to say, all right, we'll step up without having to take a full look at the ramifications that could quite possibly be for themselves, professionally, personally. On top of it, some guys might become, ineligible from playing for their home countries in the future, especially American guys that want to play for Team USA in the future. But the IHF may say, well, if you play in this tournament or games coming up, you're not going to be allowed to play for Team USA ever again, or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of things into it, but the fact that Putin and Trump say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, I think it's pretty much laying the groundwork, and this is definitely going to happen within the next 2 years. I could see it happen. I think it really all comes down to this next decision by the IOC, which is going to be making a ruling here, I think, within the next couple of months ahead of the Winter Games coming up in February next year. So there's that. I think it's got my stamp of approval. It's definitely happening within the next 2 years.
Okay. I mean, and again, I think it would be interesting, and, people definitely tune in and everything like that. So you will see. All right. Next one, Volde.
Of course, it's hard to believe we're already talking about college football yet again, or maybe not so much. Of course, with college teams getting set back out for spring practices in the next couple of weeks, leading up to, of course, potential spring games, or even programs that still have spring games. One coach is deciding to take things a little bit of a different way, and Colorado Buffaloes coach Deionsanders wants the NCAA to borrow a move from the NFL model and allow programs to practice and scrimmage against other teams during the spring, as opposed to the one team going up against itself, offense versus defense, and go from that point as well. Now, the Buffaloes are still doing their spring game. A lot of programs are dropping the spring game practice model. And of course, one coach, of course, with Coach Prime, is throwing out the idea that, hey, let's have a scrimmage. Let's have an actual game against each other at our place. And we can actually get something actually done during the springtime to at least get something hyped up a little bit more. Now, it says here, now, in recent conversations, or at least through social media on the app formerly known as X, that Syracuse and head coach Fran Brown posted that, saying that they are offering for the Orange to, quote, come to Boulder for 3 days. Now, you can get a lot of things done in 3 days, including a couple scrimmages, some practices, and then a spring game on top of it. Now, it's very interesting to throw that out there. I've even seen Bill Belichick with the University of North Carolina throwing out the idea of doing a spring game against another opponent. I've always found that interesting to see how this could actually be and do something, as opposed to just one team going up against itself, and then that's the end of it. That's the end of spring practice. Now, is it absurd or approved? Should other college teams actually play against other opponents in spring games for the upcoming future?
Honestly, I don't see why not. I think it's a situation to where having that could, bring out the best in your players. The whole spring game aspect, I feel, is kind of seeing what you got going into the upcoming season and everything like that. Well, why don't you go up against some other schools and, things like that? I actually agree with Dion on this. I think this is a good idea for other schools to do so, because it's kind of one of those things where you don't have to, you're going to have the same, issue, what if someone gets hurt and they're done for, what? It's well, that's the same issue if you were in a regular season game,
Right.
This isn't hard to figure out, but I think that they could, bend the rules a little bit, and it just kind of would make sense. I think it depends on the school, and maybe if they're, it's kind of like joint practices and things like that for training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that could be very interesting for these players, and going up against top talent and seeing what you got against these other schools. So I think it's more of a benefit towards your team to do this, instead of, let's go up against each other, and then they kind of water it down, if you will, for lack of a better term, when you're going up against, your other teammates and whatnot. I just think it's more of a benefit to go up against another team, see what you have, kind of go from there. I mean, the Vikings did that this past year with the Raiders. Raiders came up here and they, did joint practices and all that stuff. And then they went to Cleveland to do that as well. So I think this makes a whole lot of sense. I think it would be teams not in the conference, just to avoid, bigger fights and whatnot. Yeah, you're going to have some scrums, but it's not going to be like NFL. You get that all the time. I mean, it happens, but. Yeah, I'd give it my stamp of approval. I think Dion's onto something there. I do agree with him on that, and I think he's right. Why are you getting rid of him if you can, enhance him by going up against other schools? So, yeah, I'm with him on that one. I'll give it my stamp of approval. So, Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, now starting to see this little bit of a growing trend of programs getting rid of their spring game. Like Nebraska is replacing their spring football game with a skills competition and 7-on-7 games. So basically you're turning your spring game into the Pro Bowl games. And of all places, Nebraska, I would think that they would say, well, we would actually sell out our spring game just based off of, the history and the lore that is in Nebraska football. But head coach Matt Rule did express concerns about other teams scouting players in the scrimmage and possibly poaching them through the transfer portal, because after the spring, then comes the summer before the start of, fall training camp and guys getting ready for the upcoming season. I understand that. But if you don't, I mean, the spring game itself is really a treat for all the football players that did put in the work from the season that was last year. And of course, for the young guys that didn't get a chance to play in the fall, and of course, looking to make that next step, the spring game is the send off before the summer. And that's one thing that you're really taking away from a lot of guys that might be on the bubble or guys that are looking to, make a name for themselves with the team that they are. And the ever-changing world of college football, the transfer portal, NIL and all that, none of that really seems to be, a constant thing anymore. I really like the idea of, two teams going up against each other in a spring game. It just, now you start to see a lot of these big programs, Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and USC are just among of the handful of teams that are ending their spring game as well, which is unfortunately a disservice to their fans and, of course, the university. Sure, it's not really a big hoopla event because they're all ready for the regular season early on, but you're doing a disservice to the players on the team, and I think it would be great. Honestly, you get a lot of these interesting cross-coastal matchups, like if we could see Colorado versus Syracuse, we could, see Arizona State take on Miami, Ohio, or something like that, to at least, give the players a reward after all the hard work that they put through the winter into the spring with spring practices, and now, hey, let's play a spring game against, an actual opponent instead of us beating up each other or going lighter in a game for, a couple of hours. Let's actually put on the pads and let's actually do something. Injuries could happen, but that's part of the game within itself. I think it's a great idea. It's got my stamp of approval. I think teams should actually go up against each other in spring games.
Couldn't agree more. I think it would help. Not if they're worried about recruiting, you're always worried about recruiting. It doesn't matter. I mean,
it literally is. That's why you've got 100 guys on the roster. Like,
right.
Literally, right. One guy leaves. Okay, next man up. Or, hey, who could we go get, as an immediate replacement? I think Johnny, who's selling popcorn, played middle linebacker in high school. Great, get him a number. Let's go.
I love it.
Like, your rosters are 100 players deep. You're worried about a handful of guys leaving?
Yeah.
Sure. Are they good playmakers? Well, if they're good enough, they'll find a way to play, whether here, whether there. Not good enough to play here? Well, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Right. And again, it's for the benefit of the player. It's not just, I don't know, some people, I tell you. Quick update, Wolves are down by 2 in the third quarter against the Pelicans. Wolves. Come on.
Matt, you might need to hit that breaking news sounder right
Whoa. Go ahead.
Breaking news. In a visit to Foxborough, New England Patriots looking at a veteran wide receiver, Stefon Diggs. Nothing is official yet, but a free agent visit right now for Stefon is in Foxborough as we speak. In a big target move, even though reports are coming out that a, quote, diva-like wide receiver would not be helpful in a veteran wide receiver for quarterback Drake May, even though they were looking at guys like DK Metcalf and a couple of Cooper Kupp as well, but
Teehiggins.
a guy, Teehiggins as well, but, looking at adding a veteran receiver would be great, especially since receivers in New England haven't exactly been on the same page for 4 or 5 years at this rate. But that's out in the ether right now. Could we see Stefon in navy and red? I don't know. We'll see. With Mike Vrabel, we'll have to see on that. But something is happening.
Something's happening. Diggsy.
Something's happening.
Mm-hmm. He's first Cardi B, now the New England Patriots. Here we go.
Rough living. Rough living
for Stefon. Yep, that's for sure. So Vikings got Rondale Moore. I like it. We're good. All right, last one, Voldy.
Well, looking at the possibility of award season coming out for the NBA, recent conversation, of course, with the likes of a defensive player of the year, and hopes are leaning towards to at least one player that may be more delusional than actually good at this point. That belonging to Golden State Warriors player Draymond Green, who is currently looking for his latest case for a second Defensive Player of the Year award. Quote is saying after a tough win against the likes of the Milwaukee Bucks, quoted as saying, obviously, if we keep winning and close out this year strong, most definitely, as stating his latest case for Defensive Player of the Year. I look around the league and don't see many players impacting the game on the defensive end the way I do. I don't see many players completely throwing off an entire team's offense the way I do. 1,000%. Now throwing that out there as his latest chance and case to become Defensive Player of the Year. Now, we knew the delusions and the psyche that belongs to Draymond Green, so is it absurd to approve? Should Draymond Green win the Defensive Player of the Award? If not, who should take home that crown yet again?
Well, I'm a little biased, but rightfully so in regards to this. I'm going to go with Evan Mobley. I think he has played fantastic basketball for the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs have the best record in the East right now. He is averaging 18 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game as well. And his defense has been, he's the favorite right now, as he should be. Draymond's right behind him. Jaren Jackson's always a guy that's going to be in the mix. Apparently Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even though he is a free throw merchant. But the one thing that I think that separates Mobley and Draymond is that, well, Mobley's on the better team, and Draymond is, well, Draymond, to be frank. And if he thinks that he deserves that, well, I don't think he does, because this this kind of tells me that Draymond is delusional, and he's been very delusional for a long time. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt when Golden State was, coming up, because I feel like he was a forgotten entity a little bit sometimes. But once 2016 hit, after that, he just went nuts, apparently. And he didn't play well against the Bucks yesterday. He was 1 for 6 from the field, 3 points. He had 4 blocks. That's fine, whatever. But Mobley is a different type of player. He's only averaging. Draymond's only averaging 9 points per game. His 3-point shooting is 32%. That's bad. Rebounding 6.1, assists 5.7, which is pretty good for a big man. No, he does not deserve to be in the conversation as Defensive Player of the Year. I'm giving that to Mobley, and I think he's more deserving. And again, it's not a bias; it's just facts, and I think it's very true in this sense that Mobley's been the better player. So I'm giving it to Mobley. Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, if it wasn't for Wemby being out with the blood clots the rest of the season, that would certainly be my first choice for Defensive Player of the Year. And you said it as well with Mobley. I think just the way that Cleveland's come out this season and been a real contender. Mobley has been a factor for that team defensively. And of course, the overall play that they've had this season has certainly been right with overall play. I think it really all comes down to, I know it's a regular season award too, but you see how the postseason really goes for these players involved with their teams. It could certainly be a factor. I think really player awards and postseason awards themselves should come out at the end of the season, as opposed to, just regular season awards. If they were actual regular season awards, they'd be handed out literally as soon as the final whistle during the regular season, as opposed to, let's wait a couple weeks, let's go through the playoffs, and right before the finals, let's announce the winner. It's like, no, as soon as the final whistle happens, let's start handing out hardware on top of it. That's how I feel about it. And Draymond himself, he's just trying to find his way to stay relevant in many, many different ways. It's all food for fodder. It is just completely, I don't want to say it's ridiculous, but the guy just needs to stop. Just play your game quiet. Just shut up. Just finish your career in silence, for the love of God. Maybe win one more title and just scoot on out the back door, please. Just go.
You
Please
can
stop.
get the hell out of
Yeah,
here.
just keep her moving. Keep her moving. So no, I don't think Draymond should win Defensive Player of the Year. If he does win it again, is it going to ruin my life? No, just be annoying because you're just adding
it
more
would
fuel
be
to the fire.
annoying. Yeah,
Adding more fuel to the fire.
right. And you know what? It's too bad because a lot of people had, you know, yeah, a lot of people had a lot of hope for you, but apparently you want to be a jackass. So that's too bad. So too bad, so sad. Quick update, unless we have breaking news, which I can confirm. Stephon Diggs, I did see that on the old X machine. Wolves are up, or no, excuse me, they are down 82-77, third quarter, 6 minutes left. Plenty of time, but Wolves, it's the Pelicans. Let's get this figured out, please, for good Lord. So, anyway, great job with ARA this week. Voldy, as always.
Thank you, sir.
We have a bunch of Shield shoutouts tonight, so I say we get it going with some Shield shoutouts.
Shield shoutouts.
All right, Shield, who you shouting out tonight?
Well, we start off in the world of, well, hockey within life itself. Of course, for those that don't know and are probably living under a rock, I do play-by-play for the Grand City Lumberjacks, as the shirt that I'm wearing here tonight. And a few weeks ago, we had ourselves a good old-fashioned fist fight on the ice. It included our player, Caleb Alderson, taking down Meyer for the Minnesota Moose. And believe it or not, those guys will be facing off against each other. Well, the two teams will be facing off against each other in the West Division Finals coming up here this weekend. But with the fight that did take place a few weeks ago, a memorable line has been thrown out numerous times and has been a bit of a calling card for me. And that was one that appears just here on the shirt itself with, of course, Caleb Alderson feeding him the meat candy. That's right. You heard that correctly. We finally got the shirts in here, and Jimbo was actually the main catalyst for the shirts themselves. So shout out to Jimbo for getting the shirts made up, and hopefully the team will enjoy those thoroughly here throughout the rest of the postseason and hopefully on their way to another Fraser Cup championship. Do want to say a word of congratulations and a big Shield shout out to a friend of the program, star of the show Yellowstone, and even Cowboy himself, fellow Vikings fan and Byron, Minnesota native Jeremy Richardson, who celebrated this past Monday 6 years of sobriety and being clean and sober in a continuing and completing a triumph in his life battling addiction. So congrats to Jay Rich on staying sober through now 6 years of his life. Do want to say a word of congratulations here to former Granite City Lumberjacks Brent Robinson, Jack Luco, and Langer, Jake Lang himself, winning the ACHA Division II National Championship with Lindenwood University this past week. So congrats to the former Lumberjacks on bringing home some more hardware for their trophy case. Excuse me. And we do have to say a big shout out to the Minnesota Twins for announcing that future Hall of Famer. Yes, putting that out there right now. That will hopefully and most definitely will be wearing a Twins cap on his plaque. Nelson Cruz will be throwing out the first pitch at the Twins home opener coming up here on April 3rd. Sadly, we do have to say rest in peace to former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Paul Flatley, who was passed away this week, named the 1963 Rookie of the Year, and during his post-football career was actually color commentator for Gopher football during his time. Sadly, Paul Flatley did pass away this week, the former Viking. And we do have to say best of luck and well-deserved retirement to Philadelphia Eagles defensive end Brandon Graham, just in time that he was activated for the Super Bowl that did conclude with a championship, 15 seasons in the NFL with 2 Super Bowl championships, one of my more preferred Eagles players during his tenure in the NFL, and one of the last main pieces of the Andy Reid Eagles at that time. Of course, over the years that Brandon Graham was an impact for the Eagles on and off the field. Now we'll finally get a chance to hang him up and retire as a champion. And that is going to do it for Shield Shoutouts this week.
All right, great job with Shield shoutouts this week. Brandon Graham, my aunt did get a photo with him before the whole Super Bowl and whatnot, so they had a, that was pretty cool to see and whatnot. And Paul Flatley, obviously, Nelson Cruz, Bomba Squad, baby. And the Lumberjacks, let's go. Let's get it done. And Jeremy, we got to get him on soon, I think. And
we do.
And then Jimbo getting those shirts. Like always, killing it. So great job with Shield Shoutouts. And that will bring us to our merch. Guys, we've got a lot of merch. We've got the sweatpants. We've got the shirts. We've got the quarter zips, the hats, the whole kit and caboodle. Let us know if you would be interested in any of those stickers as well. Very cheap and whatnot, so we can get those to you. And some stuff on the way, too, so FYI on that. Thank you to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson for the stickers as well. Shout out to W2 Performance, Will Rattel at www.w2performance.com. And check out TLS Performance, Troy Stoudemire Jr. with all his cool stuff going around. And the Popcorn Bucket List, Nick Dahlhoff and Ryne Meyerberg. Ryan Meyerberg. Omni Entertainment as well. They've got new episodes coming out this week and so forth and whatnot. So one last update. Wolves are tied right now with the Pelicans. Please, for the love of God, beat the Pelicans. This is be embarrassing if they don't. And shout out to Diana Rossini, Michael Silver, and Chase Daniel. All you got to say is, you know what, I was wrong. We're moving on. We're on to Cincinnati. But no, you didn't want to do that. You blocked me on Twitter, on formerly known as Twitter, X, and whatnot. And you won't admit it. So guess what? I let you have it, and that's how it's going to be. And you didn't join, Diana. We gave you a shot. We gave you 2 chances. Both of them you denied. So too bad. Anywho, that's going to do it for episode 231. We'll be back next week. More fun, more news will be coming through. And, until then, we'll keep you in the loop. So with that being said, folks, always keep in the zone.
Holla.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.